Hi guys, we're going to do a different type of video today. It's going to be a bit more of a discussion based one, and it's going to be about the SPS staking for ranked mode. And I've watched over YouTube and looked over all the other creators' videos, and they bring up some great and amazing points, but I feel all of them missed out one key point that I want to bring up. And in this video here, I'm going to bring up my personal pros and cons in SPS staking, and at the end I'm going to bring up the key point that I feel everyone's missing. And I'm going to leave timestamps in the video so you can get to the main point if you want to and skip my pros and cons. I feel everyone's heard the pros and cons now, and I feel that only the cons are going to be opinion based and the pros are obviously going to be universal all around, I think, pretty much. But yeah, let's get into this video, and remember to like the video and subscribe for more play time content, and yeah, let's get into it. Even though it's a discussion based video, we're going to do it in our own style, so we're obviously going to break down the pros and cons before we get into anything. So starting with the pros. With the new change, SPS price will definitely go up, considering SPS are going to be much more needed by everybody, and more people in the community will have to buy more to get up to next ranks and stuff like that. So it's a great pro in that regard there, and it gives SPS a great utility, considering anyone that plays will need to have SPS, and it won't be only used for like a pack, which will be like situational based. And it'll be a good idea, it's a great idea, and it's definitely needed as well, because people just play with no SPS and they can build up bot farms, and this basically eliminates them, and that's a great thing. And we're wondering how to take out bots and stuff like this, and this is a great layer and a first attempt to try and do that. And all round, it's just great. And it's the simplest system for people to understand. When new players come into the game, they don't have to bring up a chart to worry about collection power, and they just need to worry about getting up to X amount of SPS to be able to play an X amount of tier. And it's a lot simpler for them, and I feel like it'd be greater for the health of the game, definitely in the long term, considering we want it to be simpler for people to get into it. Considering Sprint Lands is a simple game, and it's appealing to players that don't want to be something to be overly complicated, and this will be going along that track and be doing a great thing in there. We talked about the pros of the SPS staking, but let's get into some of the cons. Well, my personal cons for it, and one of them is it forces a reset on players. Hawkins did a great video talking about how it'll be like a big reset for everybody, and I feel like it'll be a good and a bad thing, and I feel like it might necessarily be more of a bad thing, because some people may have got cards and stuff like that for a certain tier, and now they're going to have to sell them cards to go lower tier, or somehow try and find SPS to get it. And I know people are saying you can get SPS from renting and delegating and stuff like that, but I'm talking more about people if they just want to own everything, and in that regard, because a lot of people have like an ownership mentality in that play to earn, and that's what they kind of want. They don't want to have to constantly feel that they have to get something off of someone else. So this is more centered around that in them people there. And the numbers seem a little bit out of touch out of the community, considering the people in the game are like from the Philippines and stuff like that, and kind of like asking them to like find like hundreds of thousands of like dollars just for SPS to play the game they're already playing. It's kind of a mad thing to ask, and I feel like the numbers may be a bit too high in everything, or because it's just one set of numbers and we have two different modes. Like we could be misinterpreting a lot of things now, but we need to plan ahead a lot, because there's a lot of financial things in this game. We need to plan ahead, so with the information we got, we're making like the plans, and it kind of seems out of reach. And that's another thing, is when you're playing the game, from what you're getting now, you're thinking you're not going to ever be able to rank up from the ranks you're in now. And if you look at the numbers, if you're playing in gold, it will take forever for you to get from gold to diamond from just playing the game itself. And also it may be a deterrer for like new players when they come to the game, because in their mind they might feel like, oh, I need to get a bunch of cards and I need to get this bunch of SPS as well. And it might be a little bit better if the numbers weren't so high, but they're just so massive in regards to a lot of things. And this is my final point, and the big point I want to bring up is, if you think about it in regards to tournament staking for SPS, the rank in SPS is so massive if you put it into comparisons. And this is the big point I want to bring up, and let's get into it now. So here's the big point I want to bring up here, and I kind of find it funny that Weirdbid was the one that brought up this point. I don't know if it was in Discord or where it was, but I'm going to bring it up on the screen now what it said. But we're not going to have this update coming anytime soon. It's going to be sometime in August. But Weirdbid had to do staking for SPS already for people, and he did it for tournaments. And I feel like him saying this year makes me feel like Weirdbid is going to have like a grip on what's going on with the staking stuff, because it's a bit mad when you compare it to like the tournament staking, and we already have this. And this is what I want to get into, is like when SPS staking for tournaments came out, there weren't so much of an uproar. People were upset obviously because suddenly there was a new requirement, but the number they had to reach wasn't so out of touch for them, because it was a reachable goal. Now even for me as like a tournament player, I don't have enough for the top modern diamond tournament right now, but that was what I was reaching towards, because I was already had enough for like some of the diamond tournaments, and it was already a part of like the tournament culture as it was. So we already had staking, so when it come to ranked mode, it was like, okay, we're kind of already prepared for this. But then when the numbers came out, we were like, so the tournaments are cheaper than ranked mode, and it's just confusing. And I feel like SPS staking for tournaments is a lot more in line for the community. And I feel maybe they need to look back at that type of staking system and maybe rethink the ranking system, ranking the SPS staking for ranked mode, and use that as an example, because that fits a lot more towards the community, I feel, and the community is already prepared for it. And if you think about it now, yeah, when we talk about the big reset, even the tournament players now have to have a reset, because if all the people that were set up for tournaments now have to rethink what they're doing, because it's all going to change, and because they have to obviously think about ranked mode, and then according to their ranked mode that'll parallel their tournament mode, so tournaments are going to change after this as well. So I'm hoping that maybe in the future, or before this happens, that the staking will change more aligned to the tournaments, because I feel like tournaments is a big overlooked thing in the game, and I feel like you can use it as an example for a lot more things. And it's just a clash overall if you really think about the numbers, and I'm going to break it down to you now. So we made a graphic to basically have all the tournament SPS staking laid out for everybody, and you basically have your regular foil and your gold foil tournaments and your modern and wild. And wild tournaments cost you more than your modern tournaments, and the gold foil ones cost more than your regular foils. And if you have a look at the SPS, the chart that we've got so far, it's going to cost you nearly 1800k SPS to play in Diamond 1. And if you have a look at Diamond Gold Foil Wild tournaments, it's kind of near that number. Obviously it's a little bit more, but it's near that number. And then if you go towards the Diamond 3, 88k, it's kind of close towards the regular foil Wild at the same time. It might be a little bit more, like I said before, but it's kind of close to it. Whereas if you compare it towards modern, it's a whole extra zero. It's a whole extra zero you're asking upon them. So what I'm saying here is, this table here needs to have two. You need to have two of them. You need to have one for modern and one for wild. Because in my mind, this chart is perfectly fine for wild ranked mode, but for modern ranked mode, you're asking way too much of the community. And if you had the chart split up into two, a bit like how I'm guessing Weirdbid was the person that designed the SPS staking for this, so it's definitely a great way to do it, is to having it split between modern and wild, and you need to have that for this. And they may be doing this, and like we said, we may just be getting the first like alpha of the whole information. But if you compare the two, you can see why some people are kind of upset, because if they prepared their staking for tournaments, then they got told this information, they're going to be so confused over what's going on. And I feel like that's the big confusion with everybody, and I feel like there definitely needs to be a split. And that's my opinion on everything. I feel like that's the point that everyone's missing, is that if you look at SPS staking for tournaments, it gives a great example for ranked mode. And if you have a split, considering we have a split in ranked mode as it is, it'd be a great way to kind of like settle the noise. and I feel like maybe I might bring this up in the town hall, or this might be something I'm already working on, but I feel like I needed to bring this point up. I'm going to end this video just explaining what I'm going to do after the change, but I'm going to be getting more SPS because I was already intending to do that for tournaments, and I was going to hope that me getting more SPS will get me ready for ranked mode, and just pray that they're going to change the numbers. And if not, I'm going to be changing from champion / diamond to gold, because my cards are kind of already there and I only have a few max cards, so it won't take me long to adjust from there. And also maybe not be so overly exposed to with Splinter Lands and stuff like that, that maybe not buy every single thing that drops with them, and same with content, maybe diversify a bit more there, because for me I love Splinter Lands, but I feel like sometimes I degenerate too much into the game and I just buy everything, I want everything, but I'm going to be a bit more controlled in the future. But I'm definitely going to be praying that they change it, and before August time when they're thinking about bringing it out, I hope they're going to change it to be a bit more in line with like the community and more towards tournaments and stuff like that. And hopefully if they have it explain it better, maybe there might be a wild SPS staking and a modern SPS staking, a bit like how tournaments does, and then it'll be a bit more better to understand, and we can obviously have the modern format be the cheaper format for people. And considering I feel like that's where a lot of the community is, and I feel like that's where a lot of where the uproar is, because they're just being suddenly asked of all this SPS, whereas wild players, if they've been playing in tournaments already, they've already kind of been dealing with this amount of SPS asked of them. So I feel like if they had a split between the SPS staking, that would be great in the future. But comment below your thoughts about all this ranked SPS stuff, and remember to like the video and subscribe for more playtime content, and hopefully we'll be doing less drama stuff like this. But yeah, see you next time.